So thank you for having me. Thank you for your introduction. I want to thank you also, Redgate, for making this happening and all the organizers that made it possible to be here and to show you what awesome things Microsoft is doing for us. I will talk to the next 45 to 50 minutes about Azure SQL Managed Instance and give you a little overview what's in there and what is possible with it, what you can get from there. First, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Björn Peters. My name, I'm working for Kramer & Crew since a year for now. I'm mostly into Microsoft Data Platform, SQL Server, and another part of my, or main part of my job is building solutions for our customers. For about 7 to 8 years, I'm a member of PAST Germany, where I already take part of them with them in several events, like a volunteer speaker, and I'm also an organizer of the Azure Meetup in Hamburg here in Germany since end of 2016. So Microsoft recognized me as an MVP for data platform, and in the first year as a cloud and data center management, as I just contributed some things to DBA tools. And you can also find my SQL Server on Azure blog or Azure SQL blog on SQL aus Hamburg. It's little German. It means SQL from Hamburg, where you can find more information from me. And you can also write my email address, or you can contact me on Twitter with SQL from Hamburg. So let's start. Let us start with our adventure on Azure SQL databases or Azure SQL Managed Instances, and where you can store your application data. You might also take your own application or a brand new idea to be realized in this session or in your mind, and can move into the cloud. Something's stuck here, so I don't. So if you have your application, for example, you have a virtualization environment on-premise where you can host, for example, a normal small environment for a SQL Server or a reporting server application. Or you are already in the cloud and have some web applications which also gets data from a SQL Server. In this case, as you started earlier with Azure, you might also formally went to a virtual machine where you put on, as usual, a SQL Server, and you can run that from there and you get data to your applications. Or you take another example where I can show you more about what might be possible with SQL Server Managed Instance in Azure. For example, I have this example application environment where you have a gaming solution and where you want to deploy different games on a platform, and you see you can, or you have to deploy several virtual machines to your environment. For each service or for each game, you need to deploy several virtual machines and a SQL Server, and you also need a SQL Server for your authentication gateway services. And even if you have those games running, you might want to stuck into the data and get some reports from there for your customer services or to show them on your environment. So this is my example environment where you can see where we can use, for example, a managed instance. Now, this is our solution, and now imagine you are sitting in a meeting with your boss and your colleagues, and think about your boss want to talk to you about new challenges in the business, and you should bring up some new ideas how to improve your applications. your boss wants you to be more flexible. He doesn't want you to have more hardware, or you should be, if you want to increase your performance of your application or your database, he doesn't want you to buy new hardware or to increase the amount of CPU or RAM on your hardware. So you should fulfill in your new solution what you can get the best out of it. So here's he also wants you to save money, and not even in the infrastructure. He also wants to create more efficiencies within your team. And with this, he wants to solve other projects, or if you get more efficient with your work and you get more free time or more free resources within your company, you will be able to solve other projects or problems, and might be even fixing and developing other software, games in this case. So after you got those efficiencies and flexibility, he also wants to reduce the time to market. So where do we start? There are so many different kind of services which you can choose from in the Azure environment. So in this case, we want to start with Azure SQL. And as I already mentioned, the requests were stated clearly from your boss. He wants to reduce the infrastructure and database resources. He wants to no more refreshing of existing infrastructures. And you don't want to extend your team by new members. And so he wants to get all those features and problems solved by a move to the cloud. So what's in the cloud, what we can get from the cloud? Let's take an overview. As already in the on-premise environment, you will see that you have already also the possibility to deploy a SQL Server on a VM in Azure. That might be a first start or a good entry point for you, because it's easily to deploy and it's totally the same environment and total behavior as on-premise, as you know that, or already might know. So to move your SQL Server into the cloud with a SQL Server on a VM is the first lift and shift and the easiest way to migrate. But there are also a SQL Server database service, which is just a database which you get from Azure. And if you need more than one database, you might get a second or third database. And even if you say, I need more than 3 or 5 or 10 or even 100 databases, then you can put them together in an elastic pool, for example, and can then combine in a performance class, give them the possibility, the opportunity to share data, not even data, the performance compute, the compute resources, where we can, which I will show you later. And we are talking here about Azure SQL Managed Instance, which is a fully managed SQL Server database engine with not just one database or just two databases. You get a complete SQL Server managed instance without any infrastructure. So you don't need to patch or have the maintenance on your virtual machine or your infrastructure. So this is what you get. Microsoft will take care of everything what's around your SQL Server. So you just get a SQL Server completely with an agent, with the availability to use, for example, SQL Mail. You can deploy linked servers to other environments where you want to go and get data from. But first, I want to clarify some basic stuff like availability in case of high availability or disaster recovery. So you might know from the last years, or you might even from your experience, you might know that you can install your SQL Server as a normal standalone machine on a VM or on a hardware. But what is the availability solution between this standalone, or what happens if one data center crashes? You're right, you're losing all your data. Even if you might have a backup solution where you store your data and your backups, and you might restore them on a new machine, eventually in data center 2. But in this case, the gaming solution, you earn money with those games, and all your customers want to proceed within the games. And so it's a business critical environment where you should, or you have to prove that your SQL Server is nearly 100% online, and you have to build up a solution. For example, there is a failover cluster which might fade into this. A failover cluster is able to prevent a longer downtime. But imagine you have to think about the infrastructure in your data center or your hosting environment, where you have to double the infrastructure for storage, backup, network, power, and even double the amount of licenses which you have to deploy in your second data center. And cooling, you have to, the rent for the building and so on. It's all coming into this game, and you have to calculate for that. Even if you set up a new, since 2012, a new solution or technology called availability groups, even if you set up this, you still have to buy or to deploy several machines with the corresponding infrastructure as storage, backup solution, network, and even network security or operating system security, like firewalls, virus scanner, or something like this. And don't forget about the manpower you will use to, or you will have to plan to maintain and operate these environments. So how can a Azure SQL Managed Instance help us with this? Let's take a closer look on what is in the Azure Managed Instance. And here I want to start with the underlying infrastructure. But the first starting point where I want to start with infrastructure. In this overview, I just made some kind of decision tree. How much control do you need on your SQL databases? If you need less configuration, or you just need a database and you don't care about the underlying infrastructure or the instance, and you don't need a SQL Server agent, then SQLDB, as an Azure SQL DB with Elastic Pool or serverless might be the right one. Or you can see the most effort you have with SQL Server VM. But here we are going to a managed instance, and you can see there are two performance classes which you can deploy of Azure SQL Managed Instance. There is a general purpose and the business critical. And what's behind those names, I will show you, is in the infrastructure, the underlying infrastructure of this service. There's a general purpose. In the general purpose, in this architecture model, there is a stateless compute layer which runs the SQL Server exe process and contains only transient and cached data. This stateless SQL Server is operated by the Azure Fabric, Service Fabric, which takes care of those running services, and if one of those processes crashes, it restarts another process. So there will be always at least one of those processes running. And even if the whole thing crash, it will fail over to another service fabric, and you won't recognize this failover, this outage. And it is also stated, not stated, it has all those processes are connected to a Azure storage account, which is a blob storage, and this blob storage guarantees that you will not lose any data or record that is placed into your data file. So Azure Storage takes care of your data, as you might know. Azure Storage is always redundant and takes care of at least 3 copies in one data center. So you won't lose any data on your data files. So as you can see here, stateful data layer with database files, MDF, LDF, also all placed on Azure Blob Storage. And we come to business critical. The difference to business critical, you will see them in this screen. The business critical performance class is not deployed as a Azure Service Fabric process with attached storage. It is a whole 4-node always on availability group cluster, which you will get. So you don't have to care, as you might know from an always on availability group cluster, there is in this 4-node environment not really the possibility to lose your complete data, or the downtime in case of a failure will be decreased to a minimum. So every database you will put on your managed instance will be automatically placed into this availability group cluster and will be spread across all nodes. And even if you put a check in, or if you check a special box within the deployment process, you will also get a read-only endpoint on one of your secondary replicas. So you can split across the connections between primary read-write endpoint and read-only endpoint. So in case of a failure, as you already might know, if the primary replica crashes, it will immediately switch over to a secondary replica and make this a primary. So yeah, that's the difference. And as you can see here in the screen, it's not attached to a storage account, it's attached to a superfast SSD directly. So you will get more data throughput on your disks instead of compared to a general purpose machine. So I wrote that down here. High availability through replication based on a 4-node always on availability group. Compute and storage in a single node design. You won't see those other, or you won't see the other 4 nodes of these availability group cluster. You just, for your experience in the front end, I will show you that later, you just get a normal SQL Server. And you are not able to switch over to a secondary replica. And storage is on local SSDs. So this business critical environment is directly attached to a storage box which is in the same rack in the Azure data center. So the way of your data will take is the shortest as possible. If you deploy your managed instance via the portal, Microsoft will provide a special network configuration for you. I tried to make it visible here in this slide to show you what's different. So to implement this network, or to implement a managed instance into your environment, or Microsoft needs to set up a special networking environment for this, that they are able to provide you the availability which they guarantee in their SLA. And to make this happen, Microsoft says you need at least a special VNet with a special at least 2 subnet configuration with a user-defined routing table attached to the managed instance subnet. And as this is not the easiest way to provide a subnet or in normal way, or Microsoft needs this special configuration with a lot of ports opened, and you might not be able to do this by your own or on your own. And Microsoft provides you a script for that, or if you do it on the Azure portal, Microsoft will provide you everything what you need in your environment to have a successful connection between your application and your managed instance. And in our case here for this gaming solution, I tried to show you the complete VNet configuration. We have a gateway subnet where your on-premises connections will connect to, or your gamers will also connect to that gateway subnet, and then they will be routed to the authentication subnet. And just as they are authenticated around into your game, and they are allowed to connect, then they will write the application will write data to the gaming subnet and even to the management subnet. So there are internally routed traffics between those subnets. So as you can see here, there is a special management instance subnet where we have to place our managed instances. So sorry for that. Yeah, so some more details on what you get if you deploy a Azure SQL Managed Instance. What you will get? You will get a Azure SQL database version number 12, which should be the latest. And if you compare 12 to a normal SQL Server, it will be 2016. Well, it's still ongoing normal patch cycles, and will be, as Microsoft provides cloud-first deployments. In the cloud, you will get always the best and the stablest version of a SQL Server database engine. What you will get also within your managed instance is a managed automated backup. You don't have to care about your backups. Microsoft is taking care of that on a regular basis, depending on your workload. There will be, in the normal case, there will be one full backup every week, one differential every day, and during the day, they will take care of your transaction log backups, and at least every 15 minutes. If you have more data which comes into or is changed within your database, the time they will increase the cycles down to 5 minutes. So they will take care of your transaction log backups for between 5 and 15 minutes. So you also get built-in instances and database monitoring and metrics. You can, as I will show you that later in the demo, you will also get all the metrics and monitoring features they are built into Azure. Automatic software patching, yes, which might be not the best, but you have Microsoft will announce that they will patch your environment, and you don't recognize that. So and even as I already said, with a complete environment, deployment of the environment isn't that easy. Microsoft will provide you a VNet ARM template which you can deploy, and in this VNet ARM template, all the necessary configuration is already done, and you just need to deploy that ARM template if you don't want to do it via the portal. And even with general purpose and business critical, you get an SLA with 99.99% for in my opinion, low price. So I have another table for you, differences between Azure SQL Database and Azure SQL Managed Instance. You get on an Azure SQL Database, single DB or elastic pool, you are getting automatic tuning for indexes. That is not possible on a SQL Managed Instance. You have to take care of that on your own. You can use the all-grain maintenance scripts for that as a SQL Server agent job. Backpack file import or export is possible in an Azure SQL database and not in a managed instance. As I showed you in the former slide, previous slide, backups, other than the system machine or the initiated backups from Microsoft. On an Azure SQL database, you have no possibility to take your own backups. In a managed instance, you can, for example, with the all-grain maintenance script, you can implement your own agent job, which has to be a copy-only backup, and which you can, for example, copy to a storage account. Change data capture is not possible in an Azure SQL database, but in a managed instance, also CLI cross-database queries and transactions are possible in a managed instance. Database mail, as I already mentioned, is also possible in a managed instance. Geo-restore replication in the database, yes. In a managed instance, just with copy-only backups, you have to do that on your own. And you can create linked servers in a managed instance. So key features. Our boss, or your boss, told us that we have to do some tasks, or we are doing this migration to Azure in a managed instance to achieve some goals. So, for example, if we are moving to a managed instance, we don't have to purchase any hardware, and we don't have to operate that hardware or environment. There is no overhead for managing the underlying infrastructure, the quick provisioning and service scaling. Yes, we can easily increase the amount of CPU or storage which holds our database. And even Microsoft takes care of on our automated patching solution or version. And the managed instance is able to or you can integrate the managed instance in all your data flows within your other environment. You can add for example, a Azure Data Factory and connect it to the managed instance and move your data into the cloud or into the managed instance. As I already mentioned, 99.99% uptime SLA. The high availability, as I already showed you in the architecture, is integrated or already built in. You don't have to care about your backups because they are automated and your data is protected by that. Yeah, there is a backup retention period which can be configured between 7 and 31 days for a managed instance. And if you need your retention period longer than 7 or 31 days, you have to make use of the copy-only backups and put them onto your own storage account where you can put them or let them stay longer than a year, 2 years, or what your law is saying you need for in Germany, for example, more than 10 years. Yeah, that's why you are able to do your backups as a user-initiated backups, and you are already also have the opportunity to do your point-in-time restores up to a second. Security compliances, so security and compliance. As I just showed you, there is the Azure SQL Managed Instance is put into a special VNet configuration, and by that it is isolated and it's not you are not able to connect to that application or to that database from the outside, and you have to configure that VNet and subnets accordingly to your application and the connections you need for your application. So, and there's also transparent data encryption already implemented on that managed instance. You can use Azure ID identification and even single sign-on support. You can also use Azure AD Server Principal logins, and you have also the highly recommended compliance standards, same as on the Azure SQL database, where nobody is able to get into or compromise your database. And as I already showed you, SQL auditing is also possible on that managed instance, which you normally get with an enterprise edition. Here you get it with your managed instance. And a feature which is included into Azure is the advanced threat protection, which might be also switched on for the managed instance. Another feature which in my opinion is fantastic. Many of you might have a SQL Server on-prem already, which is underutilized by 4 cores and, for example, 8 gig RAM, and you putting on that virtual machine more than one instance in order to increase the possibility to put different applications on that machine. And last year it was only possible to deploy a managed instance with at least 4 virtual cores, and accordingly to the 4 virtual cores, a RAM of, I think it was 28 gig, and that just one instance. And now it is possible to split this up into pooled managed instance or managed instance pools. So you can put on those, as you might know from an Azure SQL Elastic pool or Elastic databases, you can buy a amount of RAM and CPU, or RAM is put is combined with CPU and RAM. So you can buy one performance class. For example, you buy 8 vCPUs, and you can put on there 8 split those instances up into 8 instances, or at least 4 instances, so that you can, each instance might use 2 vCPUs. So let me show you something on the portal or in the SQL Server Management Studio. So in the management, in the portal, you have the if you go to Azure SQL, the portal will show you those already known opportunities to deploy a SQL Server or SQL database. Here you have Azure SQL Database, single database, Elastic Pool, or database server, which is just a logical like I say always a DNS name or a listener to your database. So you can connect to. Here you have a SQL virtual machine with different options. You can deploy a virtual machine with Windows Server 2019 on SQL Server 2019 on it. But we want to deploy a SQL managed instance. Here we have a single instance, or in this subscription, I'm just able to deploy a single instance. So let us create one. It's working. Well, it's slow. Sorry for that. So, as you might already know, in Azure, you have to choose a resource group, or you have to create a resource group where you put in the managed instance. You have to name your managed instance, and it should be a unique name. So in this case, DPDD EU. It is free and you are able to use this. Choose a region where you want to deploy, and then this is the most interesting thing. Configure your managed instance. You have to choose which one you want to use, general purpose or business critical. So as you can see here, in general purpose, you have the opportunity to choose between 4 and 80 vCores. And accordingly to the vCores, you get a special amount or a defined amount of RAM, which is in a Gen 5, it's 5.1 gigabyte per core. So you will get 4 vCores with nearly 20 gig RAM, and you can use this slider to increase. This is business critical, and you can use this slider to increase the storage, which you can see here. With only 4 vCores, you just get 1 terabyte. If you increase the vCPUs, the amount of storage will also change here. So 24 vCores reaches to 2 terabyte, and if you go up to the 80 vCores, you will get 4 terabytes in a business critical environment. And yes, on the first view, 35,000 euros seems not to be that cheap. But if you compare this price to a complete environment, hosting your environment on-prem with all those rent, manpower, infrastructure, licenses, and so on. It doesn't seem that much as a high cost. It's comparable. So in general purpose, you can see you can reach with 80 vCores, you can reach 8 terabyte, and the price decreases to 13,600 euros. So, and if you configure this, you can, I'm not allowed to do this here. You have to enter your admin user and your password, then you can configure your network. As you can see here, this will be configured by Microsoft for you, so you don't have to care about this. Some configuration, if you want to expose your SQL Server endpoint to the public internet, you have to enable this. You will get a warning message. There should be a warning message. No, okay, but you should be sure that you want to do this and take care of your security. Additional settings, which collation you want to use, which time zone you want to use, and use as a failover secondary. That is another option which is possible. So you can deploy a second managed instance, which act then as a failover secondary. So then you might review your configurations and create this one. Yeah, that's failed. I've missed the user. That's correct. If you click on the button for create, it will take about 4 to 6 or even 8 hours to deploy this service. The general purpose might be faster during the deployment, but the general purpose, as you remember, in the infrastructure, it is much more complicated to deploy that, and it will take even more time to deploy that. So plan that in. If you want to deploy that, take care of the time. It's up to 8 hours. I already have deployed a managed instance for you, just to show you. Here you have the overview on your managed instance, for example, CPU utilization during the last 1 hour. I don't have a database on there, so the CPU utilization is 0, and you can click here or take care of all the configuration, and you can even dive deeper into the metrics of your managed instance by choosing monitoring metrics. And you can select what you want to see there. Yeah, CPU is 0 because there's no database, which is because I want to show you. In the SQL Server Management Studio, I'm connected to a local SQL Server 2019, and I'm also connected to my managed instance here, and that's what I said earlier. It's version 12. But if you look at the properties, it's an Azure SQL Database Managed Instance. Here, based on a operating system 2016 data center, and it's a version number 12.0.2000.8. And here you can see we have a memory, 4 virtual cores and a memory of nearly 20 gig. It's a Gen 5, it's a general purpose, and there's no database on it. Here you can configure, like on-prem, you are not able to configure the amount of RAM, max RAM, because it's already limited by design. But you can take care, for example, of index fill factor, or you can take care of max degree of parallelism threshold and what you want to do there. And the easiest way to migrate from an on-prem SQL Server to a managed instance in Azure is to do it via backup and restore. You can back up your database to a blob storage here, to do it a backup database to URL to your blob storage, and even that you can I've already done that. Before you can do that, you have to create a credential with identity. As you have to deploy your storage account, configure it to for the usage with an SAS token, and then you have to take this token and create a credential on your SQL Server, on-prem and on your managed instance usage. You both has to use the same credential, and then you can take a backup using that credential, which writes your backup to the blob storage, and then you can do a corresponding restore on your yeah. That should normally work, but I don't know why. I tried to, sorry, I have to change the connection. Yeah. In the preparation for this demo, everything works fine, and now, okay. But that should be the easiest way to migrate your data from on-prem to your managed instance, and you can restore devices from here. There is nothing I can restore, so I can. You can do this. Ben, please raise your hand if I'm out of time.
You got 2 more minutes, and I got a handful of questions for you. We can do the questions
great.
in a little overtime. So,
okay. So I just tried this before, so I can restore it from here. As you can see, Azure Managed Instance is also storing that deleted databases as an information, and you are able to restore even if you have deleted that database. You are also able to do the restore. So I've shown you that everything's fine. So yeah, as you can see here in the Management Studio, you are getting nearly a full instance, which is similar to the on-prem environment. And you also have here the possibility to deploy agent jobs. So I'm nearly through with these questions. We are coming to that later. Conclusion, I think this product, this Azure service, Azure SQL Managed Instance, is a big thing, and I love this product. It has proved high availability, VNet separation for your security, a nearly full SQL Server instance, as I already told you, with SQL Server agent included, where you can run your jobs, where you also can do a SQL agent, create a SQL agent job, which triggers your Azure Data Factory, for example, or trigger other things. It's an intelligent database as a service built with built-in intelligence. And take this if you need an instance Thank you very much for listening, and now I'm ready to answer your questions.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation, Björn. So we got 3 questions. Question number 1, you semi-answered that already. So question number 1 was, what are my options to migrate from on-prem to managed instance? You've showed us how we can take an on-prem backup and restore that. Is there anything else that we could use or that you would recommend, or is this really the way to go if you want to go from on-prem to MI?
Taking a normal backup to a URL and restore that is the easiest way. But it is just, I would recommend that just for small databases or a small amount of databases, because of the transference, you have to try this for your application or for your database. And if you want to, for example, migrate 1 terabyte database, the time you have to transfer the data or the restore will take is too high for your downtime. Then you have the opportunity to choose, for example, Azure Migrate services or the Azure Database Migration services, where you can configure, which you can deploy, and then configure a nearly transactional log backup, log moving, log shipping rhythm, which leads to a minimum downtime in case of a switch over.
Okay. Next question was, you've had that in a very detailed slide. The question is, can you summarize the difference between an Azure SQL DB and an Azure SQL Managed Instance in maybe 1 or 2 sentences? So basically get it to the core essence. What is the difference between one or the other? And is there like if there's even a way to put it down and to simplify it that much, what's the difference between the 2?
A Azure SQL DB, a single DB or an elastic pool is just a database. That is what you get. You just get a listener, a DNS name where you can connect to, and under this DNS name there is just your database. You are not able to configure, for example, database files, different database files where they are resist. In a managed instance, you will get a fully configurable, fully configurable instance where you are able to, for example, add database files, or you are getting the main feature which is missing in a Azure SQL DB. You are not able to do a cross database query. If you have an application which contains 2 databases and you want to do a join between those 2 databases, for example, it's not possible to do that in a normal single DB. But in a managed instance, that is possible.
So basically, if I just need a single database, like I'm just running a small website or something like that, I go for Azure SQL DB, and whenever I need an actual SQL Server application with a full stack, I would go for a managed instance. Would that sum it up a bit?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And last question. One of the issues that many people have in Azure is that if you want to get more I/O, you want to get more performance in storage, you basically have to go for bigger storage. The bigger the disk, the bigger the throughput. That's kind of the master rule in Azure. Is that the same thing in Azure SQL MI? So would I have to go for more storage even if I don't use it to get better performance, or is that independent in this case? Oops, sorry.
No, that's true.
Oh, storage is cheap,
mainly,
so I mean,
yeah, mainly you will have this issue in a general purpose instance, because in a business critical you have direct attached SSDs, and if the amount of local SSDs is too low, they will attach. You have to increase this or put the slider on a little bit more to the side, and they will attach additional SSDs. In a general purpose, you have to increase the blob storage, where it's leading to as a normal operational disk or data disk on a VM. If you want more throughput, you have to increase. Sorry for that.
Okay, welcome to the world of Azure. So that's
Yes.
it for questions. Thank you very much. For those attendees that had questions, if your question has not been answered, please feel free to pop that back into the questions, and I will make sure to relay that back to Björn. Otherwise, thank you very much, Björn. While we're on that,
you might contact. Sorry for that, Ben. You might contact me via Twitter or via my blog post, or write me an email.